Imagine this. You're in the middle of a busy day, sipping your coffee, and suddenly nature calls. You head to the bathroom, reach for the toilet paper, and thankfully it's there. Soft, perfectly perforated, and ready to save the day. We rarely think twice about that roll sitting quietly on the holder. But behind its simple appearance lies one of the most fascinating and high-tech manufacturing processes in the world. Each year, the United States alone produces and consumes over 7 billion pounds of toilet paper. Yes, billions with a B. That's enough to wrap around the earth hundreds of times. But have you ever stopped to wonder how it all comes together? How do factories keep up with such enormous demand and make sure we never face the horror of running out? Today, we're going behind the scenes of one of the most underrated modern marvels, the journey of toilet paper. From scrap to soft, silky roll, toilet paper is something we all use but hardly ever appreciate. Of course, we find ourselves in that dreaded situation when it's not there. This everyday hero of modern hygiene wasn't always so common. In fact, it's a relatively recent invention in human history. Before it existed, people had to get creative using leaves, hay, corn cobs, wool, and later, old newspapers or even mail-order catalogs. It wasn't until 1857 that a clever American entrepreneur came up with something better. He called it medicated paper, which was sold in small pre-cut sheets. It wasn't soft, and it wasn't fancy, but it was a game changer. A few decades later, in 1890, the roll format was introduced, and that's when toilet paper started to look like the product we know today. Back then, it was mostly sold in pharmacies, often in neat stacks rather than rolls. Slowly but surely, it made its way into every household, becoming the bathroom staple we can't imagine living without. Fast forward to the present, and we now have a highly sophisticated production system capable of making millions of rolls every single day. The story begins at the recycling plant. Modern toilet paper factories are incredibly resourceful. They don't rely exclusively on cutting down fresh trees. Instead, they use advanced recycling technology to repurpose paper that might otherwise go to waste. Packaging, cardboard, office paper, and other paper scraps are collected, sorted, and transformed into the soft white rolls we take for granted. Not only does this process keep up with massive global demand, but it also helps save trees and reduce environmental impact, making toilet paper production far more sustainable than many people realize. Once the paper arrives at the plant, it first goes through a strict sorting process. Specialized machines separate different types of paper, remove any large contaminants like metal, and discard anything unsuitable for reuse. Conveyor belts move the paper through automated sorting systems that can process up to 400 tons per day. That's like taking a small mountain of paper waste and giving it a new life. After sorting, the paper is compressed into giant bales, big, compact blocks that make storage and transportation efficient. These bales then head to the next step, pulping. Pulping is where the magic starts. The sorted paper is fed into a massive machine called a hydropulper, which is basically a gigantic blender. Warm water is added, and powerful agitators spin the mixture until the paper breaks down into its basic fibers. At this point, the mixture is about 95% water and 5% cellulose, the natural building blocks of paper. This stage takes around 30 minutes and results in what's called pulp, a thick, soupy mixture that will eventually become brand new sheets of paper. But it's not ready yet. The pulp still contains ink, adhesives, and other impurities that need to be removed before it can become clean. White toilet paper. Next comes filtration and cleaning. The pulp is pushed through a series of fine screens and filters that trap any unwanted debris. Think tiny pieces of plastic, tape, or anything left over from the recycling process. What's left is a smoother, cleaner pulp. But there's still one big issue. The pulp is dark because of leftover ink. To fix this, factories use a process called flotation. Air is bubbled through the pulp while special surfactants are added. The ink particles stick to the bubbles, which rise to the surface and get skimmed off, leaving the pulp much cleaner. Now that the pulp is clean, it moves on to refining. This step might sound small, but it's critical. Rotating discs in a refining machine break the fibers into smaller strands, creating more surface area. This helps the fibers bond together better, resulting in a stronger, softer final product. After refining, more water is added to get the mixture to just the right consistency. The result is a white, smooth slurry that's now ready to be turned into paper. The slurry is pumped through a network of pipes and sprayed evenly onto a moving mesh screen, which allows water to drain away while the fibers start to form a sheet. It then passes through a series of rollers that press out even more water, increasing its density and strength. At this point, whitening agents are added to give the paper its signature bright white color. Slowly, the mixture transitions from a loose slurry to a continuous sheet of damp paper, called the wet web. The wet web moves into an enormous drying system. Imagine giant heated cylinders working like clothes dryers, evaporating the remaining water until the sheet is almost completely dry. The sheet becomes extremely thin, just a fraction of a millimeter thick. Flattening rollers smooth out any wrinkles, ensuring the final paper will have a nice, even texture. Then comes one of the most important steps, crepping. A metal blade carefully scrapes the paper off a giant heated drum called a Yankee dryer. This step gives toilet paper its soft, slightly wrinkled texture and makes it flexible enough to tear easily when you need it. At this point, the paper is finally dry and strong enough to be wound into giant rolls called jumbo rolls. These rolls are enormous, sometimes weighing as much as 5 tons, and the machines produce them at incredible speeds, often more than a mile of paper per minute. The jumbo rolls are then moved to another part of the factory for cutting and finishing. During finishing, the paper might get decorative patterns printed on it or be embossed with a dotted texture. This doesn't just make the paper look nice, embossing actually makes it feel softer and fluffier. The paper then passes through a perforation machine that creates the small, evenly spaced cuts, allowing us to tear off perfect squares. Meanwhile, in another area of the factory, cardboard cores are being made. These cores are produced by winding layers of adhesive-coated cardboard into tubes, which are then cut to the proper size. Finally, the paper is wound tightly around the cardboard cores, creating the familiar rolls we all recognize. Most toilet paper is two-ply, meaning 2 layers are combined for extra softness and strength. Once the roll reaches the right size, an automated blade cuts it, and the next roll begins. This process happens so fast that a single roll takes only 3 seconds to complete. The large rolls are then cut into multiple smaller rolls to match the standard sizes sold in stores. Before they can be shipped out, the rolls go through quality control testing. Samples are taken to check for softness, durability, and evenness of perforation. If the batch passes, the rolls are packaged. Commercial customers often get individually wrapped rolls, perfect for businesses, restaurants, and hotels. For households, the rolls are packed into plastic bags, usually in packs of 4, 6, 12, or even 30 rolls, ready to be sent to supermarkets and retailers. On average, each American uses about 141 rolls of toilet paper per year, more than any other country in the world. This massive demand fuels a global toilet paper industry worth nearly $100 billion annually. And who could forget the toilet paper shortage during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic? Store shelves were completely empty, and toilet paper suddenly became one of the most sought-after products on the planet. It was a strange reminder of just how essential this humble product is to our lives. So, the next time you reach for a roll, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey it took to get there, from scrap paper, through pulping, cleaning, pressing, drying, crepping, rolling, cutting, and packaging, all just to keep you comfortable in one of the most important rooms in your home. If you've got any funny or unforgettable stories from the great toilet paper shortage, share them in the comments so we can all laugh or cry together. And if you want to see how other everyday items are made, make sure to check out the next video. Trust me, you'll never look at household products the same way again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.